having surrendered. Throughout my operations, I have found the Negros the most active and determined warriors, and during the conferences with the Indian chiefs, I ascertained that they exercise, an almost controlling influence over them. The Negroes rule the Indians. Many of the original black inhabitants began to flee from the Western Territory, and many inhabitants sought refuge in Florida, and some went further west to California and mingled with other unaffected indigenous populations. In 1816, a U.S. colonel named Duncan Clinch led an army into Florida to destroy what was called the Black Fort, or Fort Negro. Colonel Duncan Clinch led an army of Red Creek mercenaries and a U.S. Army unit, a U.S. Company Army unit into Florida to destroy Fort Negro. And a book called The Black West by William Katz, K-A-T-Z, reports, the explosion killed almost all of its black and red warriors and 200 women and children. The few warriors were led back to the United States and slavery. In his initial orders, General Andrew Jackson had asked that they not only destroy the fort, but return the stolen Negroes and property to their original owners. Pardon the interjection. That said, it was an explosion that killed the black and red warriors and women and children. Does that give any hint on Black Wall Street? Anybody ever heard or read up or went to investigate Black Wall Street? Explosion, killing black, so-called black women and children, babies, cowards. And then a few warriors were led back to the United States, but wasn't this in Florida? So that should tell us something, Moors, that this is just a United States company. The land is Morocco. Al-Maghrib al-Aqsa. And we continue. But the question remains, did these aboriginals see themselves as slaves, foreigners, or property of the Europeans, as Africans, Negroes, or colored peoples? No. In Colonel Duncan Clinch's report of the battle at Fort Negro, the first U.S. invasion of Florida, the information provides facts to the contrary. Colonel Clinch's report reads, pardon the interjection on that, so I want to let this be known. That fort had, all forts have a flag. Every fort that you can go and look up and investigate, all forts had a flag. That fort had a flag. I implore you to do your due diligence to find out what flag was there or at that fort, which is, I think, also named Fort Gadison or Gadison. We shall investigate that more. And Colonel Clinch's report reads, Fort Negro, 1816, end quote. In the evening, a deputation of chiefs went into the fort and demanded its surrender, but they were abused and treated with the utmost contempt. The black chief heaped much abuse on the Americans and said he had been left in command of the fort by the British government, and that he would sink any American vessels that should attempt to pass it and would blow up the fort if he could not defend it. The chief also informed me that the Negroes had a red flag, and the English Jack was flying over it. Pardon the interjection. Please, people, go and check out what the English Jack is, which is the British flag, and the red flag, which is the Al-Marak flag, or the Al-Moroccan flag, the Moorish American flag, the red background with the 5-pointed green star smack in the middle, which is our honorable flag. The Star Spangled Banner is an amnesty flag to do business. The national flag is the cherry tree flag, which I just described with the red background and the 5-pointed green star. That was flying there on that fort, at that fort, which were Americans. So let's get this correct. The true Americans are the copper penny testers. That is in line with the copper. If you don't jive with the copper, you're not an American. And that's not my definition of it. That's not a leader definition of it. That's a definition that's in the book. I think it was, if I'm correct, 1933 to 1938 Webster's Dictionary, Universal Dictionary. Please, if you can get your hands on that, check it out. And we continue. The question that must be answered is, were these people former slaves? What was their purpose for flying the two flags they were flying? Slaves do not have flags. A flag represents a nation. What nations did they represent? There were cannons in use at Fort Negro. It is a well-known fact in history that the cannon was developed by the Moors in North Africa and Spain. The Moors had not only made the fire stick, dynamite, or gun, we need to find that out, pardon the interjection, as mentioned above, which is the cannon, but even cannon forged from wrought iron, which is dynamite, fire stick. The two flags represented Great Britain and the indigenous Moorish Empire. They represented a nation of indigenous Moors. This is the same Islamic empire in the east that Abu Bakr